Joseph Smith never created a map, but if you plotted these place names, the internal geography is so consistent, scholars can reconstruct the terrain from the text alone. So dictating from memory, 4,000 words a day, referencing 150 named locations multiple times throughout the text, he is always accurate on geolocation to each other. To talk about the, complexity of the Book of Mormon. So the first 150 named locations with internal consistency. So the Book of Mormon contains over 150 named places, many of which were mentioned dozens of times with precise spatial relationships: northward, southward, up, down, by the sea, in the wilderness, etc. The land of Nephi is always southward and higher in elevation than the city of Zarahemla. This spatial consistency is never contradicted through, the entire book. Joseph Smith never created a map, but if you plotted these place names, the internal geography is so consistent, scholars can reconstruct the terrain from the text alone. So dictating from memory, 4,000 words a day, referencing 150 named locations multiple times throughout the text, he is always accurate on geolocation to each other. I don't even know if I could dictate 5 places through multiple stories and keep them geographically accurate, let alone accurate enough that we have been able to recreate maps of the ancient civilizations of the Nephites, Lamanites, and Jaredites by the description given by Joseph. It's not like he was staring at a map talking about it while he was dictating it. He was literally just head buried in a hat reading words off a seer stone. Efficient systems of weights and measures. Alma 11 describes Nephite currency in a multi-tiered system involving standardized weights, exchange rates, and labor equivalencies, all presented seamlessly in a legal and economic context. Inventing a fictional currency system that makes economic sense is hard. We know it's what fantasy authors spend years developing. Joseph did it mid-dictation. Just right out of his mouth. Scribe wrote it down. It all held consistently through all the stories and, the different aspects of the Nephite civilization and, all of their political and economic structures and all that. Just brilliant. Off the top of his dome. 4th grade and 3rd grade education. Embedded flashbacks and literary framing. This is incredible. So the book of Mosiah begins in the middle of events. Then we flash back to Zeniff's colony, get a nested story from Alma the Elder, then return to the present. 3 narrative layers deep without losing track. Try pulling that off without an outline or notes or revisions. This is like Inception, dream within a dream within a dream. Accurately telling the story from this perspective, then moving to this perspective, then going back to this perspective, then moving up to the top perspective, right? Just while dictating coherently all on your own with no manuscript or anything in front of you. He does this tons of times, embedded flashbacks in the Book of Mormon, where it refers back to a story that was told or, brings a new character back in, or they meet somebody who they had dealt with before. And he goes back and, just effortlessly goes in and gives this, recounting of these flashbacks and then comes right back to where he was before. That's difficult to do. I get lost at times in just reading literary flashback if it becomes complex, right? Let alone trying to dictate it off the top of your head with no notes, no manuscript, no prior planning, none of that. Like, I don't know.
How long do you think it would have taken an author, like a really skilled author, to write this book?
Listen, Tolkien took years. Brandon Sanderson, one of my favorite authors, because of the internal consistency of his novels, like in The Way of Kings.
Yeah.
I just picked up his 5th book because it came out, I think it came out end of last year. I didn't realize. But the first 4, I think he's been writing for 10 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
So it's like, it takes him usually on average 2 years. And I think his first book took him a lot longer than that. When he has his scripts and the internal consistency and how to do all that, he can write, a similarly sized book in a year. But, you're talking 65 days with no prior and nothing to go off
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, you're talking years in development for a standard author to do something like that. Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, you know, because it's on that level. As we continue to get into the, you know, literary complexity, I mean, it's as complex as any work that's ever been done.
And there's good evidence that this happened in 65 days. Like there's no way he took years doing this.
No, there's solid evidence, 65 days.
Yeah.
From the date that he gets the plates, you can just read it in history, people's journals, guys that are trying to steal them, on and on and on to when the book comes out. It's like, you know, it's a few months of him running around trying to avoid all this stuff. And he has about 65 days in there. They say between 65 and 75 days of working time to be able to make it come to pass. And that's not to, you know, that's to say Tolkien and Sanderson, and these are some of the brightest literary minds ever. These are men that were trained in classical writing
and have a real gift.
Yes, have a robust knowledge and gift for it.
Yeah.
You know, you read what people say about Joseph. I think I have some quotes in here a little later. He couldn't dictate a coherent letter.
He was a dum-dum.
I mean, essentially, because he became much smarter, you know, over his 15 years, you know, 20 years. But he attributes all that to divine revelation.